Obviously, the war is going to dominate conversations right there, and measures that countries should take, policymakers should adopt. One of those, when you go down to the micro level, is individual your finance management, adjustments, investments management. And this morning, we're going to be discussing perhaps one of the ways you could manage your investments, your portfolios, and PIGGYVEST. PIGGYVEST here in Nigeria say they might have a solution for you as they celebrate 10 years, a decade of existence right here. We have joining us for this conversation, Damilola Arogundade, the Treasury and Investments Lead at PIGGYVEST. Damilola, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Ini. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great.
I'm excited to be here today.
Good to have you, and we're great. We're also happy to celebrate 10 years of existence. How's the journey been for you running in Nigeria?
It's been an exciting journey. Within that time, the country has experienced 2 recessions, and it's just helped us to be more resilient. It's helped us to grow deep roots within the Nigerian economy. And it's also helped us pay a lot of attention to the needs of our users and understand them and provide the right kind of solutions that also help them navigate the macro challenges that come with being in Nigeria. So yes, it's been a tough journey, but it's been a rewarding journey nonetheless.
So when you talk about that journey, you talked about how we've seen recessions and we've seen growth projections, and just when we thought we're going to have stability, now we see this geopolitical disruption. For you and for individuals thinking about investment, what changes have you seen, and what can we expect the trend to be in the midst of a lot of uncertainty?
It's really interesting. I think, we're expecting about 4.5% growth in GDP, for example, in Nigeria this year. Q4 numbers were really exciting, and then these shocks came in the form of the war in Iran, and everybody is having to recalibrate and get ready for what is coming. I think what everyone is trying to do now is understand the impact on asset prices, understand the impact on individuals and their wallets. And that's what we're doing now, both as an institution and what we're encouraging our clients and our users to do. On a macro scale, there are expectations that it will bode well for the Nigerian economy. Oil production is slightly up. Definitely, oil prices are much better. So we expect that generally the country will continue to make more money. All the various tiers of government will have more money to implement both the infrastructure developments that they intend to. But we've also noticed the slow transmission mechanism between the macro position and the pockets of the citizens within Nigeria. Sometimes it feels like the government is doing well, the reforms seem to be going on well, but it's not always the case for the Nigerian on the streets. So, navigating these current shocks is going to be important. There is the need to think more globally, to think more in the long term as well, and position to make sure that whenever these shocks comes, both as a country and for the individuals in Nigeria, we are well prepared to manage those shocks.
Managing shocks and preparing for them. But I guess that's our reality at this time in the world. But recently, PIGGYVEST carried out a savings report based on national survey data. Could you tell us some highlights from those reports and perhaps some lessons that we could learn?
Yes, the PIGGYVEST 2025 savings report was an interesting exercise. The results from the reports were indeed very interesting. These surveys, we've now been doing them for 3 years. So now we have a bit more data to work with, and we've been able to analyze some of the trends that we've seen in those data points. It's not very great reading in some of the points. Only 3 in 10 Nigerians from the sample size we surveyed earn up to 100,000 naira a month. Only 4 in 10 Nigerians, for example, from the data that we surveyed, have emergency funds. I think these are damning numbers. Only 6% of Nigerians feel confident in their financial situation. These are both social and economic pain points that show that Nigerians are struggling a bit. There's a lot of resilience that they've shown. As I've mentioned before, there have been a lot of recessions and devaluations in the last decade or so. And so the financial well-being of Nigerians is a struggle, is a pain point. And I think it really just points to the need for everyone, for individuals, and for the governments in particular, to put in place relief systems, to put in place support systems that help people. In the situation where very few Nigerians have emergency funds, for example, it means they don't have 3 to 6 months of earnings that can support them if they lose their jobs, for example. So these are some of the things that we've seen in our savings reports, and they highlight the importance of building a savings habit. And that is why a product or a company like PIGGYVEST exists, to help Nigerians develop that savings habit, to help them have the discipline required to put aside some of their earnings for the rainy day. It's natural that if you don't pay attention to it, it's very possible that whether it's black tax, whether it's contributions to family events or religious bodies, something is likely going to take your funds away if you don't put it aside. And so that's what the data is showing us, that the work we do at PIGGYVEST is really important to help individuals and also businesses to get ready for these difficult moments that will definitely come.
All right, help us to maybe share some tips when it comes to the emergency fund as one of the findings of your report. And I mean, for you at PIGGYVEST, you're supposed to also help in areas like that. Perhaps a lot of Nigerians do not know the necessity might be there, but how do I really start when an individual is still struggling to meet up with the needs, not the wants, needs of today? So when you talk about emergency fund, it's kind of, well, it's not my reality at this time, but perhaps you can give some tips on how an individual can go about that to achieve and own an emergency fund.
Yes, you're absolutely right that, and the data from the savings reports also shows it, that most Nigerians spend up to 70% of their earnings on basic necessities, including, food and shelter. And so when you have to put aside as much as 70% of your earnings just to survive, it's difficult to put anything aside for, say, emergencies or wants down the line. But it's important to note that in the core earnings that we have, or in the income that we make, we have to put funds aside once those basic needs are met to meet emergencies that come up in the future. And we have a wallet within our product called SafeLock that allows you lock up your funds for a specific period. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 1 year, it could even be longer than 1 year. And you don't have access to the funds until the time that you've set. Having this kind of discipline is what will help an individual be able to set funds aside. If that discipline is not there, if you are not putting the funds in a place where they are fairly inaccessible, where they are not easily accessible, if I can put it that way. There is the temptation to constantly go to those funds as soon as the first ones comes. So once you are able to meet your basic needs, I think it's very important to put aside funds. You can have a formula to say 40 or 50% of your earnings go to your basic needs, and then 10 or 20% go to savings or investments. And this, 10 or 20% will include the funds that you are putting aside for emergencies that may emerge in the future. And then the balance of your funds you can use for your other wants and discretionary spending.
So I guess this
I
is
think
where a
that's a formula
portfolio,
that can work.
I guess this is where a portfolio manager comes in, yeah, to help individuals with this.
Yes, definitely.
So must everyone have a portfolio manager?
No, not everyone doesn't necessarily need to have a professional portfolio manager. I think as much as you are interested. So PIGGYVEST, for example, as well, we do a lot of investor education. We try to teach our users how to think about their savings, how to think about their financial journeys, how to even understand where they are. When you are starting out your career as a young analyst, for example, you're probably not earning as much as you will in your career life cycle. And as you continue to grow within your career, as you continue to add professional certifications or build up your skills, you start to get promoted, you start to earn a bit more money. You need to understand, what do you do with that additional discretionary income? Do you grow your expenses as much or as fast as your earnings are growing? Or do you then start to put aside some more money for the future? So there's a lot of education, personal education, and investor education that can also help you to build these skills, to build this knowledge. There's the information is also very democratized now, so you can learn a lot even on YouTube, on the PIGGYVEST blog, for example, on how to manage your finances a lot more, and get you ready for your future.
So the digital financial platforms, obviously, they are one option for individuals
Yeah.
who, as you said, would not want to go the way of professional portfolio managers. But what about trusts? Nigerians trusting these digital platforms, has that improved?
I think it has definitely improved. I think a company like ours has shown that it can be done, and it has been done. I think when you look at the volume of transactions that even happen within the banking system over the last decade, it's a lot more digital now than it's ever been. The volume of transactions that are done through e-channels, through ATMs, through digital payment channels, I think those volumes are significantly higher than they used to be. And almost on every corner now, you have, POS terminals, you have e-commerce generally happening across the country, and across the globe, significantly more than used to happen. So, the digital economy and the impact they play within the general Nigerian economy is here to stay. They've facilitated trade a lot more than used to happen. There are institutions now that support even brick and mortar institutions now in selling more, in selling faster. The velocity of transactions that happen have significantly been helped by digital channels, by fintechs like us, by payment processors that partner our business as well. So the digital economy is here to stay. And I think the volumes will only continue to grow, and the trust that is in these channels will also only continue to grow. Even the traditional banks now, they have e-channels, they have their digital banks contributing significantly to their banking operation. So it's here to stay, and it will only continue to grow more and more.
And I'm sure PIGGYVEST is one of those companies that also be giving some offerings, in deepening this trust and
Yes.
adoption of digital platforms.
Definitely, definitely. I think within, as we've done in the last 10 years, we're starting to look forward now to the next 10 years and continue to look and ask, what do our users need? How can we continue to help them on their financial journeys? And so, we're going to be rolling out products, we are going to be rolling out solutions that help our users even further, that help the Nigerian, person, the typical Nigerian, help them better manage their finances, help the Nigerian business, the Nigerian SME better manage their finances and make sure that they are in a position to handle whatever shocks come their way. They are in a position to make sure that their cash is constantly working on their behalf.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll certainly join the world to celebrate PIGGYVEST at 10. And of course, we expect a whole lot more in the next 10 years. Managing portfolios for Nigerians. Treasury and investment lead at PIGGYVEST, Damilola Arogundade, thank you.
Thank you, Ini. Thank you for having me. And thank you for celebrating PIGGYVEST at 10.
You're welcome.